Welcome back to another battle report, folks, and to the final game in our series of Stalingrad battles. We're using Enemy at the Gates and Cross of Iron again. This probably for the last time in a while with the other books that we want to cover. So the previous games you will have noticed have been in the run-up to Stalingrad itself, as opposed to a whole series of games just on street fighting. But we felt that we had to cover off the street fighting in the final game, so we would set up a nice big cityscape, factory district, and decided let's have a game in here and get something bespoke together in terms of a mission. So there's lots of very specific specialist units in these books for street fighting. We didn't use them because we wanted to stick to what we're familiar with, because we're doing a bespoke scenario, and also this is the very early days of fighting in Stalingrad, so if you can imagine, it's the Germans trying to take the city at a run and the Soviets just throwing forces in to try and block them. So we didn't have any specialist storm groups or assault sappers or anything like that. That's more for once the city fighting was more established, and it's certainly something that could be considered and should be considered to take full advantage of these books, but not something for us in this game. So this game is going to focus around the capturing or holding of 3 factories. Now, the factories are important because they were strategic objectives, but in terms of the game, because that's how and where the Soviets will get the reserves from. So for the Soviets, each factory starts off with 1 platoon, not a company, but 1 platoon of infantry, which is 7 bases, and 1 T-34. Each turn from the first, the Soviets will be able to roll 1 dice for tank reserves and 1 dice for infantry reserves that will come out of that factory. Now, if they've already, once they get a reserve on from that factory, they cannot get another one until that reserve is destroyed. So for instance, the tank is destroyed or the infantry platoon is in bad spirits and withdrawn from the table. But the special rules attached to those reserves, whatever comes in after the start of the game from each factory, is it has to attack. It can't just sit in the factory. It can't pull back to counterattack. It has to attack. They have no option but to engage the enemy. So they're basically going to be flung into the teeth of the attacking Germans, probably to be destroyed, but ultimately to slow down the advance, because the game is only going to last 9 turns, and then we'll count who's got control of what factory. They'll get 2 points for control of a factory, 1 point if the control is shared, and the player with the most points at the end will be the winner. So we've put some special rules together. For instance, all of the Soviets would be fearless regardless of the absence of a commissar. It doesn't matter, they're all fearless. There would be no last stand tests for any gun units on either side. We thought, like in the city you could easily be broken up. It meant, you could put guns where you wanted, you could split platoons up, put guns where you wanted, so they're covering a road, which is a bit more realistic than 4 guns pointing down one road and none pointing down another, if you see what I mean. And then the Germans, they've got immediate reserves for their infantry, delayed reserves for their tanks, and the Germans massively outnumber the Soviets in terms of what's on the table at the start, but the Soviets have got the potential, depending on what the dice gods say, of bringing in a hell of a lot of points. But this isn't really about an equal match-up on points. It's about, can the Germans push on quick enough without being destroyed to capture all those factories by the end of turn 9 and take the factory district? Or can the Soviets drip feeding their guys in sort of suicidal attacks to try and beat the Germans back? Can they hold off and hold on to all or some of the factories? So over to the game. At the end we'll come back, look at the rules, see what worked well, what didn't work well, look at the game, and it might give you a few ideas for how you might want to do a big 6x4 cityscape battle yourselves. So over to the game and hope you enjoy it. So here is deployment, folks. There's a hell of a lot here. Let's just go through it. So, quick word on reserves. There is one platoon in reserve for each company. They're in delayed reserves. The tanks is one platoon of tanks in reserve for each company. The tank platoons are made up as follows. You can see 2 long barreled, 1 short barreled 175mm Panzer III. Now the forces on table. There's 2 infantry platoons plus company command, heavy machine gun platoon, mortar platoon, and then there are a couple of anti-tank gun position with each company, and a couple of infantry guns with the heavy ones in the middle, and a couple of Stugs supporting each company. So you can see here mortars, anti-tank guns, infantry guns, Stugs, infantry, company command infantry, SIGs, heavy infantry guns, anti-tank guns, heavy machine guns. Well, there's heavy machine guns here as well, need to move up to get some line of sight. Then you've got mortars, infantry, heavy machine guns, infantry with company command. And then the Soviets, they've got 45mm anti-tank guns. Oops, excuse me, here. Platoon of infantry. T-34 that's all ready to go. Mortars. Another platoon of infantry. 76mm anti-tank guns. Heavy machine guns in here. Put cover and fire in those approaches. Heavy machine guns in here for that main boulevard. Mortars in here too. And well, you can also see there's a couple of T-34s ready to go. There's also up to 2 anti-tank rifle bases that can respawn. They can only ever be, they only ever deploy from ambush, and there can only ever be 2 of them on the table at one time. So let's see how this goes, folks. It's a bespoke mission, never been used before, might be fun, might be over in the blink of an eye, we just don't know. Let's see what happens. We'll go over to German turn 1. German turn 1. So, in turn 1 they're rolling for immediate reserves on the tanks, didn't get any. Everything else is firing at its moving rate of fire. The infantry all moved up. Other things that are going to just supporting fire just stayed still and fired. Not to any great effect. I managed to pin those guns, but the guns, mortars, heavy machine guns and so on all have better saving throws. So they made a hell of a lot of saves. These guys, as you can see, have moved up into here. These guys have stayed put just now because there's a lot of open ground to cover, and there's heavy machine guns in that factory. So they want to try and soften them up a bit. Might not be a good move. There could be a horde of Soviets running out of there any minute. But we'll see. They'll be in a better position to do more damage next turn. So there you go, not much apart from a little bit of movement and a little bit of shooting for the German first turn. So over to Soviets for their first turn. Soviet turn 1. So, as far as reserves go, this is only infantry at this point, remember. They got a platoon in from this factory, and they've gone charge, platoon in from this factory, and they've gone, or as we say, hoorah. As far as shooting goes, there was a hell of a lot of shooting that they could be doing. These anti-tank guns didn't unpin. The mortars tried to range in but didn't. They need 60s to range in on various targets, going for like mortar teams and artillery and such likes. This building took an absolute pasting though, from lots of heavy machine guns and unpinned anti-tank guns and infantry. and they lost a base. So they're pinned. So I need the company command to give them a wee push to keep them going. So they've got a lot of open ground to go over at the moment. And the T-34s moved up and we forgot to roll. So I will do that. And you'll see subsequent turns what they did. They're probably going to be got this one here, maybe try and kill some anti-tank guns because that's what a tank probably would want to do, but we'll see what Brian decides. German turn 2, didn't get any armoured reserves on. Over here they pretty much stayed still and did some shooting because there was hordes of Soviets running at them or sitting in front of them. Over here one platoon has moved into this position after that platoon moved over to there. And sorry for the light, folks, for recording these outside of a normal time of recording, and it's early morning sunshine. Sun's rising in the east basically, for real here. So in terms of shooting, one anti-tank gun bit the dust from machine gun fire. Over here, one heavy machine gun bit the dust from heavy machine gun fire. The anti-tank gun fired at the T-34 and did nothing. There was a hell of a lot of firing over here. The guys in the cover fared well. The guys in the open didn't. But that's still a lot of shots that are not being directed into these guys. They lost 2 light anti-tank guns and 1 base of infantry. You know, so the way I'm looking at it is these guys can respawn, and when they do respawn, I've got more infantry. Brian's got to push on, but we'll see how easy or how difficult that turns out to be. So quite a lot of casualties for the Soviets this turn, but you know what, I think I'm going to run out of these casualty markers as the game goes on. So over to the Soviets for their turn 2. Soviet turn 2. So these infantry, the 2 bases, they're in bad spirits, so I just pulled them off and then rolled 2 dice for reserves. So this factory and this factory, this is for infantry reserves. They were eligible to get reserves but didn't. So next turn I'll be rolling for tank reserves. So this T-34 is just boldly going up the street. This one's heading over there, and one's moved up beside the factory. It fired and missed. This one actually killed an anti-tank gun, which was good going, to be honest. It just fired at the building. And then as far as the rest of the firing goes, the mortars managed to range in, and they killed a SIG and they killed a SIG, hit lots of stuff, but ranged in now, killed a SIG. So the Germans are ranged in here, they need to kill them before they start taking casualties. The platoon that's doing the flank attack is going to get the award for today for the most unlucky platoon, I think, because they're getting pretty hammered. It's mainly that turn anyway, it was anti-tank guns that got them. These other guys here fired at this building, which is now got lots of infantry in it, but did nothing. Here in the street, only 1 base got killed as a result of shooting from all these guys. Over here, nothing really happened. T-34 nearly hit a Stug but didn't. So Germans need to get a move on. That flanker tank over there looks quite promising, but everybody keeps getting killed, so they could do with some tanks. Next turn they're going to get at least 1 platoon of tanks, and maybe some other reserves as well. Oops, German turn 3. So this time they got a reserve platoon of infantry and an automatic, but just the 1 automatic platoon of tanks. Brian was thinking of a flank attack around here, but this is where the factories are, so he's just rolled them straight up the road. So as far as any other movement is concerned, nothing really happened. These guys didn't unpin, so they've just got on the ground. There was a bit of shooting over here, infantry were getting pinned, and That's about it. Over there, the artillery that was ranged in managed to kill a single mortar, but these guys have got better saves than the rest of the conscripts. They've got 3 up saves, so they made a hell of a lot of saves. The anti-tank gun didn't unpin. And then as far as shooting goes, well, these guys rolled up and got 4 hits on him and he saved every single one. And then the pinned anti-tank gun finished him off. And as far as the rest of the shooting goes, it wasn't, when you look at it, nothing much happened. The Stoogs stayed out, even though they're in real danger from that, because I thought German turn 3. So infantry reserves arrived for this platoon. Only 1 tank platoon arrived in reserve. Brian was thinking originally of a flank attack with them, but this is where the battle is, so he's just brought them on here. As far as any other movement goes, there wasn't really anything. The heavy machine guns manoeuvred around a little bit. The Pack 38 didn't unpin. These infantry didn't unpin even with the company command, so we just kind of sat still and lots of shooting, so nothing much happened. They got pinned. The artillery, like the mortars and the surviving SIG, got loads and loads of hits over here into these guys, but you know, they've got a half decent save because even though they're conscript, they've got 3 up saves instead of 4 up saves. And this was quite interesting because Brian rolled these on and got 4 hits, every single one hit, which isn't surprising considering they needed 2. But it saved every single one of them, and I thought, oh dear. And then this 1 shot, pinned, fired, killed it. And then over here, Brian wanted to get an assault in, so he needed to pin them. He had 2 artillery platoons, needed to pin both this factory and the street. He had 2 artillery platoons and they didn't range in. Only needed to get a 4, 6 dice, looking for 4s, and they never got above a 3. This platoon got pinned. There was so much shots fired into them, and then Brian launched to assault, but there was 6 shots and 2 shots, and that was enough to pin him, sort of push him back, and he lost a base, lost a base to his saving throws. And over here, this T-34, Brian was going to shoot and scoot them, we'll let him do that next. They got hit a couple of times by the anti-tank guns, but it saved. And all this fire was directed in here, so these guys are fine. Brian needs a bit better luck so he can push on, because that's turn 3. Got 6 turns to try and push right the way through. Might be a tall order, but we'll see how it goes. Soviet turn 3. So in that turn, they didn't get any infantry reserves, but they got 1 tank from this factory, so it's peeked up the road, fired and missed. Now, there was a hell of a lot of hits going in against the Germans. Over there, that platoon got pretty badly shot up, but made a lot of saves. It's pinned though. This platoon here, once again badly shot up, but pinned, no losses. These mortars are still not ranged in yet over there. Over here, the heavy machine guns didn't unpin, the mortars did unpin. The mortars weren't able to kill anything. The heavy machine guns all managed to get that Pack 38 at long range. So, I'm quite content just to sit still here. Well, over here they did lots of shooting again, but at the heavy machine guns, but didn't do enough to pin them, didn't kill anything. So I'm happy enough just to sit here now. Brian's got to come on. It's turn 4, so it's nearly halfway through. He's really got to get a push on, I think. He needs infantry reserves on over here. He needs to concentrate a bit and get over the open ground, and then just got to range in with his artillery and do a bit of damage here. He can get his assaults in. German turn 4. So what happened in that turn? Everything that needed to unpin unpinned. Infantry arrived from reserve, tried to follow me, didn't work. After the tanks, and Brian decided to try and go for a hook. There's still time, and maybe aim for that factory there. Otherwise, these guys all pretty much just stayed still. There was absolutely bucket loads of hits. Bucket loads of hits, but all past saves or failed firepowers over here. This side was a different story. The artillery managed to range in, did a few casualties, killed a anti-tank gun, killed a base infantry, another base infantry, but most importantly got pins. The tanks moved up with the same idea in mind, and they were able to get an assault in. This fresh platoon arrived, got an assault in. They lost one base on the way in to counter fire, and that was it. They then killed three bases in assault, and they ended up having to break off. But these guys are pretty well down. That platoon's gone though, so this can respawn, but remember when it respawns it has to attack. So we'll see what happens there. The mortars and the surviving SIG just managed to kill one more mortar over there, and that's it. So we'll see what happens in the way of reserve for the Soviets next turn. Soviet turn 4. No infantry respawned. One tank respawned from this factory. It's moved up to there just to get some shots off and missed. This T-34 moved up to get some shots on the Panzer IIIs and missed. This one has moved over to protect the flank. The anti-tank guns, a couple of them that were in line of sight fired. One got hit but it's saved. The other one's been concentrating with the heavy machine guns and infantry against the German heavy machine guns. Loads and loads and loads of hits, but most of them saved. Any fails or resulted in failed firepowers. The single mortar fired again, but the SIG saved. These guys did not unpin, fired but missed. Oh no, sorry, got a few hits but caused no damage. These guys did a little bit of firing, but they're pinned. They didn't really do much. No, in fact, the guys stayed on the ground. And then these guys in these factories fired at the heavy machine guns again, but once again caused no damage. So the theme for this turn for the Soviets is no damage and pretty much no reserves. So over to the Germans for turn 5, where they've got to get a push on, Brian. German turn 5, so lots of things happening this turn. First of all, a lot of things, Stugs moved out. Everybody on this side of that company moved up to assault. These moved out to take on that T-34. These infantry have moved out to try and get an assault on. The tanks position themselves to fire at the anti-tank guns. So, as far as firing goes, the anti-tank guns succumbed to infantry and tank fire. Then here, this was ridiculous what happened here. They took 14 hits from heavy machine guns alone and not a single casualty. In the end, even with the heavy machine guns, with mortars, with Stugs, I think the Stugs got one in the end. One base died, and then these guys tried to launch an assault, but that's this heavy machine gun that Brian forgot about is sitting over there. When added to them, resulted in them getting pushed back with a couple of casualties. Now these guys moved up to clobber that T-34, and they all hit, and it saved every single hit. That seems to be the theme for that road. Anything goes up that road seems to be able to just take whatever's flung at it. But look guys, the Germans are in a factory. They're in a factory, and you know what? There's very little in those two factories free buy, so if nothing comes in the way of reserves this turn, for me, there's nothing to stop them capturing a second factory, which would leave just this one here. And over here there's only 2 bases of Soviet infantry left alive and 1 anti-tank gun, because they got absolutely hammered. The artillery redirected itself onto them and smashed them to bits, and there was plenty of other dice coming in, but it was really the artillery with the better firepower that did it. So, important progress for Brian here. We'll see if the Soviets, they've only got 2 dice now for infantry reserves, and let me see, they've got 1 tank spawned on from here, so they could get 1 tank and 2 platoons infantry, or nothing. So we'll see what happens. Soviet turn 5. Excuse me. So they got no infantry reserves. Oh my goodness. 1 tank. So these guys didn't unpin, but pulled them back into this factory. The heavy machine gun that was by itself here is moved in to join them. That one stayed out there with the T-34 to machine gun what I thought would be to destroy that platoon, but hardly any hits. So only 2 bases were lost. This guy here got 1 hit and fielded firepower to kill. But these guys have been pinned. They moved into the factory at least. The 2 surviving bases of infantry there moved into here. They managed their last stand. The gun's staying where it is. What the hell? And there's not many Soviets left. Hopefully I'm strong enough to hold them off. Unless he manages to murder me with artillery and kill these tanks, I reckon I can hold him off with counterfire. But need some reserves on, some infantry reserves on, or it's going to go very bad very quick. German turn 6. So, general advance for the Germans. These guys came out. In the assault phase, they killed the anti-tank gun and then consolidated into here. These guys are moving around the side, taking pot shots at the infantry in that factory, but just basically getting them, trying to get around the back. Anti-tank guns rolled up with them. The artillery, these guys rolled 3 ones to range in the factory. These guys got there, ranged in 1 room in the factory, and then these guys continued to fire into the factory but not to get any results. Now this guy here managed to survive, let me think, what was it now? It's a crazy amount of saving throws, but it was the last one again. I mean, I think it survived. I ended up bailed out after about 4 saving throws, and then this guy, oh no, it was him. He bailed him out actually, no, that's over there. This guy got killed in the end by that I was just rolling each one individually. He got him in the end. This guy also saved a lot of dice, but the 50mm anti-tank 8 managed to bail him out. He rolled 2 ones, and that was enough to bail him out. And oh, we forgot to do the assault there. We'll do that assault next. Brian forgot about that. They'll fly in and no doubt capture that. These guys have all moved up. The factory's filled up, but they weren't strong enough, that 1 platoon, to push out and capture the next 2. So how they're going to have to reduce them with artillery. And we'll see if the Soviets get any reserve just to keep flinging in their faces, but I think the writing is on the wall for the Soviets. Soviet turn 6. So they got reserves on, thankfully, at last. From this factory here, platoon of infantry. The tanks stayed put and concentrated their fire on the factory. The mortars actually managed to range in, and they hit this platoon and the reserve platoon, not the first platoon, but the reserve platoon. Managed to get some casualties. The anti-tank rifle bases popped an ambush, and then everybody just fired away to try and pin as many of these guys as they could, and they got very, very, very close to getting in. These guys took 5 hits on the way in. Otherwise, they would have at least got a few blows in combat. But looking at what's over here, there is apart from these guys, they're all pinned by the way, all those platoons. We'll see what happens. There's only one platoon which is in assault range, and they've only got 3 bases left, so might be able to hold out for another turn. We'll see. German turn 7. So, one platoon of infantry did not unpin. Another platoon did and moved out for an assault. They've really got to try and take the factory at a run. In shooting, they managed to destroy one T-34, that was the Panzer III's firing, and the Stugs managed to bail one. There was bucket loads of hits everywhere, everything got pinned, but the heavy machine guns didn't get pinned. It probably would have been better not try to kill these guys in the open. They would reduce your target and just try to pin the heavy machine guns. The mortars and infantry guns ranged in, didn't kill anything. Over here, once again, the mortars didn't kill anything. It's quite unusual. A bit of heavy machine gun fire came in and killed a base of infantry. These heavy machine guns, by the way, moved into position, the infantry behind them ready to assault next turn. The small Rumpel platoon just backed off. These guys are ready to assault next turn. Panzer III's moving up to support. So let's see if I get any reserves. Turn number 7 for the Soviets, and it wasn't lucky number 7 for the Soviets. No reserves again, folks. Even though they had 2 dice, so well, I forgot to fire that heavy machine gun. I'll do that next, you never know. So they did some shooting. Well, the infantry here bugged out into there because it's just under less of a threat. The T-34 got in, fired, got a hit, but only managed to bail on a Stug. The mortars stayed ranged in, only had a couple of targets they could hit, didn't hit anything. The German heavy machine gun platoon over here though took a pasting, got hit by anti-tank rifles and Soviet heavy machine guns, and they were in the open, so it took a bit of a pasting. Otherwise, nothing else took any kind of damage. So turn 8, I wonder if they could hold out for one turn and even just hold on to one factory. We'll have to wait and see. German turn 8. So in this turn, didn't get back in. All the infantry unpinned. The guys came from the church, bypassed the heavy machine gun. The other ones moved up towards where the heavy machine gun used to be. Tanks, Stugs all moved up. Heavy machine guns just stayed put for the moment. Their line of sight was blocked. These guys didn't fancy moving out, to be honest. Not in the into all this fire. So just a lot of shooting. The mortars from that side and the infantry guns didn't manage to actually kill anything. Any casualties you see here came from direct fire or from the infantry or from the tanks. Likewise, the other mortars, they ranged in, the ones at the back there ranged in and caused no casualties this turn, but they're all ranged in there now, so there might not be anyone left alive by the end of the next turn. And the Stug shot and hit this guy, but hit him on the turret, and he's only anti-tank 7, so there wasn't really any damage there. The heavy machine gun survived absolutely everything that was fired at it, so that the infantry had to assault and lost 2 bases on the way in and killed it, but gave them a consolidation move, so there's a big lump infantry up here now ready to assault the living daylights out of this on the last turn. So they lost a heavy machine gun, by the way. That's important in terms of counterfire. So over to the Soviets to see if they can get any reserves in from this factory. Soviet turn 8. I rolled for reserves. There was only one chance, and that was infantry, because this tank's already from this factory area, and I rolled a 1. So, shooting. The mortars actually ranged in, which was quite funny, and hit every single unit that's in there. Didn't kill anybody, but pinned them, you never know. The T-34 fired and missed a 1 and a 2, common theme. But having said that, the infantry in here managed to hit and kill, with 2 hits, managed to kill 2 bases of infantry from that weakened reserve platoon that came on and out. 2 hits and 2 kills with rifles and bulletproof covers. Pretty good. These guys clobbered the heavy machine gun, surviving heavy machine gun and killed him. This heavy machine gun fired at it as well and didn't do anything. But that's it really, folks. Let's see if the Germans can unpin the company commands there. And if they can, I would imagine it's going to be a good night on the final turn. The last turn of the game, as planned, is turn 9. This is the Germans. So the only thing of real significance in this, well, apart from the heavy machine gun getting killed by, oh, it's hard to remember now. There's that many things coming along to say hello. 1 infantry platoon didn't unpin, by the way, but 1 did. So this is what really came down to. These guys, this infantry platoon had the platoon command plus 5 bases of infantry, I think it was. 4 or 5, I can't quite remember. Anyway, he's the only one left alive from that platoon. However, the only 2 surviving Soviets ran away. So, strictly speaking, it's not completely over. This guy, let's do it. Let's say he's going to say, right, I'm going to take 2 pot shots at you, and in fact he would be in this half of it, so he's going to have to move. He's only going to get 1 pot shot. Just because if he kills them, then they can at least say that there was 1 factory not in the position. They can't roll for reserves. So what did it roll? It rolls a 5, which isn't enough because of and checks. They didn't want to use the machine guns. These guys actually do a last stand because they might be able to do something. Infantry, fine. And a 3's fine, I think, for the mortar too. So the mortar is going to just stick a bombardment in there, just, you never know. Gets a 5, and a 3, which doesn't cut it. And then the infantry do the unpin. No, they don't. Get 1 shot. Rolls a 5, which is a hit. He rolls a 4 for a save. Apologies for the abrupt end to the recording of the game there, folks. I got a bit carried away and I used that surviving Soviet stand to launch an assault against that surviving German, which worked and actually killed him, but I forgot the Soviet was pinned. So in the end, a little bit last minute, but in the end a very solid victory for the Germans. So hopefully you enjoyed the game. Hopefully the rules were of interest to you, but I've changed them in light of the experience. So I'm going to go through that with you, and then you can maybe have a think about how you can maybe play a similar kind of game. So first of all, let's have a look. I'm going to put this on the video and you'll be able to, at the end, you'll be able to freeze the screen and have a read. So, heavy machine guns and anti-tank guns, we'll say, don't have to take last stand tests and can be deployed individually, but not artillery. They've really got to stay together, and we'll put a last stand in there because they can take a bit of a beating and just want to get the hell out of town, as opposed to gun teams that are acting individually. Soviet tanks, and remember folks, they deploy individually, can operate individually, but if they come within command distance of each other, they've got to stay as a platoon. They don't have to take last stand tests or anything, but they've got to operate together then, because it's like, oh look, there's Yuri, I'll go and join Yuri and we'll go off and beat up Hans. Now then, let me see, so reserves for the Soviets. This was probably the biggest thing from the game. I rolled 1 dice for tanks, 1 dice for infantry, and the tanks kept turning up and the infantry didn't. So where I needed to get infantry, I was getting tanks. So I've changed it now so that every key factory, everyone that spawns reserves, will get 2 dice. And you roll those 2 dice. Right, they'll get 2 dice provided there's no reserves on the table. If they've got 2 reserves deployed, they'll get no dice. 1 reserve deployed, then they'll get 1 dice, if that makes sense. So you can be either rolling no dice because the factory is fully spawned, or 2 dice. Now, whatever dice you're rolling, you will be able to choose what's coming on with a limitation of 1 tank or one infantry platoon. So if you've got an infantry platoon already deployed from that factory and you get a reserve in, you've got to get a tank. Likewise, if you've got a tank reserve deployed from that factory and you get a reserve roll, you've got to have infantry. So you can't have 2 infantry platoons or 2 tanks spawning from the same factory at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully I've written it down in a way that makes sense as well. And to stress that the Russian infantry reserves have to charge at the Germans. The tanks can operate individually, do what they want to do. And remember, you can remove the any reserve infantry platoons for the Soviets if they are no longer in good spirits. So, getting on to the start of the game now, folks. Soviet anti-tank guns can all be deployed from ambush. It makes sense that the Germans aren't going to know where the anti-tank guns are hiding. And when they're deploying from ambush, you can deploy individual guns if you wish. So you could deploy a platoon in ambush and have it one here, one here, one here, have them all over the place, or you could put 2 on together, or later on 1 on by itself, just depending on the makeup of the platoon. You can be as flexible as you want, but you cannot deploy further guns into ambush within command range. Not line of sight or anything, purely command range. If they're in or out of line of sight, it's the command distance that's important here. You cannot deploy another anti-tank gun within command distance. So you can't deploy an anti-tank gun and the next turn decide you're going to deploy another one beside it. That's not an ambush. You've deployed the ambush. So you might deploy one gun up one avenue, then another gun up an avenue further away. But you can't decide, oh, actually I'll put 2 now into that place because I need more help. That is your ambush, Your ambush is as you lay it down in that first turn. Now the Germans got the first turn in the game, folks, just to make that clear. No ranged in markers or such like for anybody. There's too much going on, too many potential targets and whatever, so we'll just say they're kind of still coming at each other. There's a bit of a rush, defensive and offensive rush. And the victory conditions. So turn 9 seems to be, it was a bit of a fluke the way it worked out, but it seems to be quite a good number of turns because it forces the Germans to attack and gives the Soviets a challenging but potentially realistic chance to hold on to some factories. The victory points are worked out on how many factories you hold. Each factory is worth 2 points. If the factory is contested, you get 1 point each. If you hold the factory in its entirety, you get 2 points each, and quite simply the player with the most points at the end has won. So there you go. There's a few changes to hopefully make the Soviets a bit more flexible in reserves, but still limit the reserves that are coming on it and what they can do. So hope you enjoyed that game. It's a little bit different. We've got Kursk coming up next, and we'll maybe finish that off with something similar. And Kursk is quite a big setting, Kursk. We'll see what we can do before Bagration comes out. We're probably not going to do any Bagration until we've got the German Bagration to go with the Soviet, as opposed to just trying to use existing German lists. We might as well try and work through Kursk, because Kursk is going to have attacking, Germans attacking, Soviets defending, and then the other way around, for the counter-attack, just to give the full flavour of that campaign. It wasn't just a 2-week German attack. That was the opening of the whole conflict in that theatre. And we'll see what we can do. There might be games in there where we can take a similar approach. and there's also a few ideas in there that could be suitable for solo play as well. I'll maybe see if I can look at that. So thanks for watching this wee series, folks. Next up after this will be a look at some thoughts on the tank options for the Germans and the tank options for the Soviets, and then hopefully me and Brian can find some time to do a bit of binge gaming, set things up and get a few games off over a weekend or so, so we can start the Kursk battles rolling out. Thanks again, folks, and if you enjoyed it even, please hit the like button, subscribe, all the usual kind of stuff. It really helps us build the channel on YouTube, and helps YouTube push the channel to people who might be interested in Flames of War. Thanks again.